going to roll right into our introduction. Here we go. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks. Not to make Cirina wait too much longer, but we typically have a segment called News You Can Use that Mark Maisonneuve does for us here. He's not here tonight, but what I did want to talk to the group a little bit about is the meeting that Nathan Fletcher had a couple weeks back, inviting folks from the film production community to talk about the possibility of bringing back a regional film office. So we've heard this before from previous folks running for county supervisor, hasn't always panned out, but it sounds like he is listening to this community. He's very engaged on this issue. He thinks it's something that not only is good for San Diego in terms of cachet and renown and kind of puts us back on the map, but it's also good for business and San Diegans' day-to-day lives here in town. Quick show of hands, folks that are consider themselves on the filmmaking side of the spectrum here in the room. Well, the majority, nice. And people who think of themselves more as video producers or corporate or things like that. Another good, yeah, see, and there's some cross-pollination. I want to kind of make sure, especially for this group, that we also kind of take a look at the benefits to the video production and the corporate community here in town by having a film office. If we have one central place where we can go and pull permits, unlike the situation now where we need to talk to different cities and different jurisdictions to try to find a permit to shoot. If we have more production in town, all of a sudden we have a place like Video Gear back in business where we can go for rentals, where we can go for equipment, to talk to experts. We don't just have one place in town like voice and video. We've got multiple places that we can go and talk to. And I think there's just really a good, that rising tide will lift all ships. And so I encourage you all to take a look at kind of what he's talking about there. Yeah, Eric. It was really a kind of a meet and greet. It was a little bit of a stump speech from him in terms of why he's after it. He shared a little bit of details in terms of he wants to have one central office, like a film office you would find in most cities, like even Hemet has a film office, but will cover the entire region. Yeah, so I mean, he's talking to all the different players, the city, the port, some of the county. I mean, he's going to be county supervisor if he's elected, so that's kind of his position where he can influence things from. But yeah, he's starting to reach out to some of those other entities that control some of those aspects here in town. They just announced a couple of call nights that Jody Silly with the Film Consortium is helping them put together to help get out the vote. Even if maybe Nathan Fletcher isn't your cup of tea politically, overall on lots of issues, the more that we as a community engage with this and make some noise about this topic, other politicians will take notice as well, and whoever ends up in that seat could help us kind of move our agenda forward in terms of improving the lives of filmmakers and video producers here in San Diego. So take a look at that. We will definitely be posting some links on the SDMediaPros Facebook page, so you can take a look at that and find out some more about these events and what Nathan Fletcher's talking about. Okay? Any other questions? All right. Without further ado, get my notes here together real quick. All right, so I have the pleasure of introducing Cirina Catania. She's the founder and lead creative at the Catania Group. She's also a partner with Lumberjack System and a founder of the Southern Cal Creatives. She's a member of the PGA, WJA, IATSE Local 600. She has worked as a writer, director, supervising producer, cinematographer, post-producer, or marketing exec on over 130 film, television, and new media projects for the big screen, as well as for networks such as National Geographic, Discovery. She's one of the co-founders and former director of a little film festival you might have heard of called Sundance, and former VP of Worldwide Marketing at MGMUA and United Artists. Cirina is now based in San Diego, which is why we're welcoming me here today. And also Berlin when she's on the road. When she's not on the road filming in the Amazon or other exotic locations. She is very proud of the fact that she has not yet, knock on wood, contracted malaria, and that after all these years, she still loves her job. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Cirina.
What I'm talking about tonight is you guys get a lot of tech and you get a lot of how-to. And Robin, at my age, people are always asking, how did you last so long? So we're going to talk just a little bit about, this is very personal, and I'm just going to share with you who I am, and hopefully by the end of it, you might be willing to share a little bit about who you are, and we'll see, but we'll turn the camera off for that part so that we don't embarrass anybody. But I have some theories about why I've had such a great time working in my business all these years, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So this is called How to Thrive on the Creative Highway. First of all, how many of you were told by people close to you or your parents or your loved ones that you should get a real job? Right? How many of you have at one time or another thought, why am I doing this? I can't afford to keep working in this business. I need to think of something else. Right? And I have overcome that feeling so many times because I always think about what else would I do. So this is about people like you and I who are left and right brain. This is one of the few images on here that actually is not mine. I have to thank the artist. I just really like that because I think that one of the things that's kept me in good stead is I have been able to move between the left and the right brain, so I feel really lucky with that. Some of us are really, really good at one side, really, really good at the other. But I think one of the things that's kept me going over the years is I've been able to sort of straddle the fence and jump from wherever I need to go depending on what I'm doing. So doing the creative, managing the budgets, running a company, that kind of thing. This I thought was very interesting, that when we're 5 years old, this study was done many, many years ago. And if you ask 98% of 5-year-olds if they're creative, they say yes. Without hesitation. They just say yes. Yes, I'm creative. I can draw outside the lines. And throughout the years, until they get to be adults, where it's down to about 2% of us. So I decided to call in the experts and find out what they thought we should do. And the video's not working, but basically what he does there is, if I can get back to it, he is going back and forth. This is my grandson. He's going back and forth, and he says, now I'm going backwards, now I'm not going backwards, now I'm going backwards, now I'm not going backwards, and that's kind of the way life is, right? Backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. But we need to get used to it. So I learned an awful lot from my father. My father was a career officer. He landed first wave on Normandy at Omaha Beach. Actually, pre-first wave, he was the commander of an all-black cavalry unit. And so it was their job to try to sweep the beaches before everybody else got there. And I didn't realize until he passed away that he had so many medals. I found them in a box in his closet. Wow. And I guess that's the way that generation is. And he's very modest. And I learned a lot from him about responsibility. And he always said rank has its responsibility instead of rank has its privilege. And I learned a lot from that. He went through World War II, then he went through, survived the Battle of Chosin, barely. Walked for 3 days with a bullet that had broken his collarbone and lodged right next to his jugular vein, literally right next to his jugular vein. And it took 3 days for him to walk through and get some help. So I always thought my dad was a great warrior, and then he went on to Vietnam. And then he must have done something right because I was born. And then we had my brother, and you can tell what era that was because he was playing with guns and I was in my little frilly dresses, which you know, of course, you're told because you're a girl, you're not supposed to be athletic, and you're not supposed to do certain things. You're supposed to be a lady, and you're not supposed to be heard. I actually have a picture of me swinging upside down on the monkey bars, but I couldn't find it. I wanted to show it to you guys because that's basically the way I was. I didn't really listen to everything I was told to do. I was always very independent-minded. That's my dad and I. We were very, very close. We had a great family. And then I went on and I had my own family. I'm now a grandmother of 3. These were my 2 little ones when they were first born. And I was working. I was divorced when they were 2 and 3 years old. So I worked the whole time, but I also tried to be as much of a soccer mom as I could so I could spend time with them. But my career was always very, very important to me. But Dad taught me how to drive. And one of the things he said to me is, always look both ways before you cross the intersection. You just never know if that other person is going to run that light or not. This is actually a picture that I took on Stargate during the filming of Stargate. But these are things that that are applicable to driving the car, but they also help me in life. And he also said something that I still teach other people when I try to help young kids driving. Don't look at that car that's right in front of you. Look at the car that's 3 ahead, and then you'll see everything in between. So I think that works for life as well. And I found out that my dad is a photographer. This is some pictures that he took during World War II when he's moving through the European campaign, and that he had also worked, which I wasn't aware of, on some of the Frank Capra films. Those the videos that they made for the American people. So he had worked on some of those. And one of the things that I'm bringing all of this up because there's a trend in life right now. We're in this phase of life where we're supposed to be minimalist, right? We're supposed to not have anything except for the bare minimum. Kids are giving everything away. They don't want to keep the old stuff. They don't want to think about the past. They don't connect to their past. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm not a hoarder, but I do think that history is really, really important. The past is your foundation. That's who you come from. That's what makes you who you are. And I think my mother was a farm girl from Belgium, whose parents were running, her father was a coal miner and her mother ran a cafe. And during the war, there was no food in the little town in Belgium where they were, so she had to cross across the borders and come back from Luxembourg or Holland carrying big, heavy sacks of potato with ham hidden in them and hide from the troops from Germany with the dogs and bury themselves in the snow. So I think I had warriors on both sides. And that's my history, so please don't take that away from me, right? That makes me pretty feisty. And so I think we should embrace our history and play to our strengths because that's what makes us really, truly successful. So who am I inspired by other than my dad? I'm actually very inspired by some of the people I've met tonight and some of the people I'm getting to know here. And I was telling this group over here how excited I am to be in San Diego because it's a huge move to move from LA to come to a new place when your career is kind of established. But man, you guys are awesome. You guys really are, and there's so much talent in this room right here, and I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone. But this is Keontae's story, who is a young Marine who lives outside of Poway here, and I've been following him for 4 years now. He lost a leg in Afghanistan and has been training to get on the Paralympic track team. So I went to meets all over the country as he was trying to get on that team and watched him. And he comes from a very interesting background. He was raised in Stockton, California, in some of the most difficult gang areas in the country. And he actually was taken away from his parents at birth. He was a crack baby. And so he lived with his mother's cousin until he was 8 years old, and then he went into foster care. And he talks about how he was 8 years old and in that house for the first night and crying because he wasn't home anymore. But that's just the way it is. And I actually went to Stockton and met his family, and they're amazing people. He finally did get adopted by his mother's cousin when he was 18, so there's a happy ending there. But he joined the Marines at 18 and then came back, and this is at one of the meets. He trains really, really hard, and I followed him, as I said, for 4 years, and we got to Charlotte, North Carolina, and he had been diagnosed with Crohn's in the middle of all of this. So this kid's had ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs, and sometimes, you know, when we're in production, we're under a lot of pressure, and we're trying to get that golden hour shot. I'm talking over here because I know my voice is going back and forth. Do you care? Because I want to see everybody. So I apologize for that. But, you know, we get uptight because we've got a deadline and it's golden hour and we've got to get that shot. Or we'll be driving in the car trying to make a deadline and I'm just worried. And Keontae will go, it's all good. It's all good. So, I mean, he's just awesome. We got to Charlotte and he missed being on the team by split second. Just a split second. And just prior to that, I'm telling you the whole story because I so admire him. A couple of weeks prior to that, or a month prior to that, we were in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he had just recovered from his Crohn's and was training, and he came off the blocks and he was going to make his personal best, and he tore a hamstring. 2 weeks later, I'm in Quantico, and he's competing for the Marines in swimming. So this kid is amazing, and I'm sharing this with you because we think we have problems, and I just think, man, if Keontae can do it, I can do it. So he decided, after he didn't make the team, that he's going to start climbing mountains. Mount Kilimanjaro was one of them. And he's raised over $5 million to buy prosthetics for challenged athletes who don't have limbs, and he's working with the Bob Woodruff Foundation. And this is his mom. This is us in Stockton interviewing her. And I think the real reason why Keontae finally was so successful is because despite the fact of where he came from and where he lived and what he went through, he always had, even when he was in foster care, he had people around him who loved him. Carly, you get this. It's all about love, and it's about knowing that somebody loves you and that you can love other people. And I think that's one of the things that has actually helped me. And that may sound a little crazy because our business is so hectic and we're doing so many technical things all the time, but it really is about people, and it's about the people who have hearts that you meet along the way. So a lot of times in our business, you might be feeling alone. You know, you're wondering how things are going to go and where you're going. And sometimes you're feeling alone even when you're in a crowd. You feel by yourself. But I like to think that when I'm alone, I'm sitting on the top of that branch, I'm looking at those white clouds, and that there's a message for me in there somewhere, and that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get off that branch, and I'm just going to fly. And I really do tell myself that. Sometimes we feel trapped. Where are we going to go? Who are we going to do this with? How are we going to get it done? You feel like you're drowning in work and details and problems. And then there's the gridlock. Welcome to Fix It in Post and all the stuff we go through in post-production, right? That was taken here at the San Diego Zoo. This was a fun little thing that some friends and I do every year. We have an Easter egg competition, and this year I did the Egg Olympics, and Egbert was too tired to cross the finish line. And honestly, most of the people that die on the top of a mountain who are trying to climb mountains die within a few hundred yards of the top because they just get so tired, they just can't go anymore. And that's when you have to draw in all of that power. You just have to draw that in and just tell yourself, one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. We were filming in Kern Valley, and I had climbed to the top of that mountain. I think it was like 500 feet to the top from base. And I'd done it 3 times, and it was at the end of the night, and the sun was setting, and I get on the radio, "Hey, Catania, what's your 20? And I said, "I'm at base camp. We need you up the top of Dummy Hill." And I look up, and I go, oh, my God. So I had to climb that mountain one more time, and I made it up to the top. And the only way I made it up to the top was, number one, I wasn't going to let the guys on the crew think I couldn't do it, right? And number two, I just one step at a time. So I didn't even look up. I just was one step at a time, one step at a time, and I made it to the top. I was out of water by then, and we had to climb down at dark, but I got the shot for us. So, and I think most of you in this room have been through that. You know, you just have to take it one step at a time. So how many times have you heard from people that you work with, "I don't have time, I'm too busy, I can't take a break," right? So that's the perfect time for you to just stop and pull over. When you start feeling that way, you just got to stop and pull over for a minute and regroup. Take a deep breath and say, okay, what am I doing that's creating all this stress on myself? And what can I do to somehow alleviate some of the stress, right? So what I do is I just sit in a hammock, or I'll go to the beach, and I tell people, just don't bother me. I'm working. It looks like dreaming, but when you're creative, sometimes when you're still, isn't that when the best ideas come? Really? When you give your heart and mind time to talk to each other, and you look at those clouds and you're standing at the top of that branch about to fly, that's when the best ideas come. And that's when you start to feel like this. And that's a great feeling. So no matter what's happening, if you can give yourself just a few minutes and feel like this, I think it really works. Then from there, you can start working. You can start doing the things that you really love, and then some of the things you never thought you would ever do. When I met the 3 guys that were starring in this series I was directing for Discovery, had I met them on the street, possibly before this, I probably would have crossed the street and been afraid of them. And it turned out they were the greatest guys I've ever met. And we were in Lynchburg, Virginia for 6 months with a crew, and we shot 12 episodes. And they were awesome. And personal relationships are so important throughout the years. This is Tim Samaras and Karsten Pater. He's a photographer for Nat Geo magazine, and Karsten's a famous storm chaser. We were chasing lightning for National Geographic. They called me up and they said, Cirina, we need somebody that's not going to scream when lightning strikes right next to him. I said, okay, I'm there. I'm there, I'll do it. And this particular scene I remember because you can see the look on Tim's face, and Karsten is standing right next to that water, and lightning struck across that field. But I don't know if you've ever been close to lightning. My hair was just sticking straight up, I think. And it was so hot that Tim couldn't touch the handles of the doors. And at that point, he said, we got to go. So then we left. So I'm not going to go through what I did last summer. These are just so many projects, and all of them have amazing memories. I joined the ski patrol right after 9/11 because I realized that I had no medical training at all, and that if anything ever happened, I wouldn't know how to take care of the kids, you know? So I took an outdoor emergency care course, which is the sort of outdoor equivalent of EMT, and I joined the ski patrol. But the reason I bring this up is I seem to always have been able to find a way to do what I love to do no matter where I am or who I'm doing it with. So I started shooting avalanche training series for the National Ski Patrol. And then this is in the mountains, and I go to Berlinale, shoot underwater. This is with Danny Glover in South Africa. When I worked on Flipper, I got to be certified for diving because we were underwater a lot. So this business is exciting, isn't it? And when you think back on your lives and all the wonderful things you've done, what else would we do? I would never quit this. I'm going to be in my 90s still doing this. And I was lucky. This one right here is a 48 series that we did for Chivas Regal and Microsoft for the web. They were billing it as the first branded entertainment on the web. I'm not sure that that's really true, but that was fun. I was lucky on that one. They told me what cities they wanted to go into that fit with their brand. You know, so it was the 35 to 40-year-old Hispanic male, and they picked 6 cities, and they basically just said, go. So they gave me a budget, and I had a crew in every city, and we just shot. And then over the years, all these many films. I was so lucky. The one thing that I love is travel. Do you guys like travel? I mean, who here doesn't like travel, right? So our business lets us do that. Oh, you do a travel show? Don't you love it?
Depends on the day.
Oh, I mean, everywhere you go, you meet these interesting people. These little kids had never seen a digital camera before. It took us 2 hours to get to the top of the mountain in Fiji, the very top of this mountain, and it was just awesome. So we took a boat, and then we went, I don't even remember, there was mud, and it took forever to get up there. But when we got up there, I think I was the first woman to do a Cebu Cebu ceremony. They tried to get me high on that stuff. Didn't work. Thank heaven for that. But these little kids were awesome. They followed me. I felt like the Pied Piper was so cute because they saw the digital camera, and I was showing them the images on the camera, and they started following me everywhere so they could see what they looked like. But whenever you travel, you meet older people too, who can tell you stories of their lives and who can, maybe you can inspire. This man was watching us from the window in Fiji, and this grandfather with his grandchild. They were awesome. We got to talk to them. This gentleman took 3 days to get him to warm up. 3 days of passing him. He looked so sad. He was sitting on the edge of the street in front of his home and just sitting there. And I thought maybe he couldn't talk, and he would just kind of watch me, and he was a little sullen. But at the end of the 3 days of just walking by him, this is in Mexico over Memorial Weekend, I just kept saying, hola, walking by. And at the end of the 3 days, I asked him again if I could take his picture, and he goes, so he stood up, he looked right at me, and at that moment, it solidified everything that I love about filmmaking. In that one moment, when his eyes connected with mine, I felt like I could see the history of his country. I could see all the loves in his life. I could see the ups and downs. I felt like Gabriel Garcia Marquez or something like that, right? And he just looked right at me, and I could only get the one shot. Because then he laughed, and he said, gracias a Dios, and we just both laughed, and I walked away. But those are the moments that we have. Sometimes you're mentoring young people, which is also wonderful. We get to the point where we've learned a lot, and young people need positive reinforcement. I like to do that, too. I like mentoring young people. We go in the middle of nowhere, all hours of the day and all times of year. This is my first real roundup. And cattle branding. I went and embedded myself in Oregon for a couple of weeks, the top of the mountain. I said, do you guys have internet? They go, oh yeah. I said, do you have power? They go, oh yeah. Can I use my own car? Sure. Well, I'm glad I rented a car because I think I beat that thing up. And then internet to them was 1 hour a day with the generator running. And I had 1 hour a day to charge all my stuff. So after this trip, I bought a whole bunch of solar equipment. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just important to be courageous. Took me a while to be really comfortable going down this slope, the top of Snowbird. And I also think that we all need to be bold and take a stand about something in our lives. This was the formation of Global Mothers a few years back at the White House. And I do think it's very, very important to appreciate the beauty surrounding you and tell that story. Look for the positive in life. We are artists. We take paint out of those tubes with what we do, and we paint pictures for people to enjoy forever and ever. Our stuff lasts forever. When you think about it, there's going to be an awful lot of sunsets, between now and the time we pass away. So think about, what is your dream? And I thought about you, Tom, when I wrote this line. What's in your DNA? That's your motto, right? It's true. It's in our DNA. My mother and my father gave me their DNA, and I became who I am because of who they are. And I am not going to throw those memories away. So take a look at your past and move towards the future. When somebody is fearful and you're shooting them, make them feel comfortable. Just make them feel comfortable, and this is what you'll get. See the difference between that and that is what you'll get. If somebody is showing you animosity, I find the best way to get over that is to just show them respect. Be respectful even if you disagree with them. If they're vain, be understanding. Step away from it. If they're telling you you're too old, I think you should feel ageless. I got that. When I moved from Utah to California in the late 80s, I was told, you're too old, you're not in a union, you'll never get a job. We just had a huge strike. So there weren't any jobs, and I said, I don't care. I did it anyway. Hi. I just bought one of those. This gentleman is a Marine veteran. He's in his 90s, and he's still a working artist. He's a survivor of Tarawa, the Battle of Tarawa. If you've been hurt, find love in your life and be flexible. This is actually a meal that I had in the Amazon. They're called Peruvian marshmallows. We were hungry. We were hungry, and we could hear them scratching in the tree. We literally had to cut the tree down in order to get to the Peruvian marshmallows inside the tree. Actually, no. But they were good, though. They were good. So find your joy. That's very, very important. So what do you guys see for the future? There's a lot of talk about the marketplace is not as good as it used to be, and we're not going to have the audience that we have, and there's a lot of competition. I don't pay attention to any of that. I'm not going to go over the details of these. If you guys want any of these charts, I can send them to you. But there's going to be incredible growth for all of us, and I think that we can all benefit from that. Find new ways of working. I'm so proud of the fact that I'm involved with the Lumberjack system. And this is a project where we kept our word. And in July, when we had a dinner with some of the thought leaders from your community, I thought, well, let's shoot some promos for everybody. And any of you are invited to do that. We're going to all get together as a group, and we've shot 8 so far. We'll be doing more.
What are these?
They're individual interviews with people who work in the business here in San Diego. And the reason I wanted to do it is because there's so much talent in this town. And how do we prove that to people from outside of San Diego, right? So it's pretty cool. We shot, and Steve helped, and Michael helped, and Tony helped, and Carly came. We did her interview. She looked gorgeous. And we did one with Tom. So we're starting that, and I'll share, if you want us to shoot you, get with Tom, and we'll figure out time and place. We want a unified look for it all. So it's basically they're 1 to 2 minutes long. But they're very personal. It's not just about, this is my resume, because my feeling is people hire you because of who you are as a person. They want to know that they like you. It's assumed you're going to be really good at what you do. If you're not, you'll never work again. But so find your story and do the prep. This was the mind map that I had created before I left for the Amazon, and this is some of the equipment. Now, a lot of this I had to leave in Lima because the only way we could shoot, we were in the middle of the jungle, and the only way I could shoot was with whatever I could carry on my back. At some point, if any of you are working in the reality or non-scripted television arena, this is a list, and I'm happy to send it to you if you want it, of just about everything you need to know before you start to deliver that to the network. You don't just take the job and start shooting. There's a lot you need to know. So maybe that's another workshop that we could all put on together, but it's pretty interesting. Ask for help. That's the hardest thing for me, is to ask for help. Just ask for help. This was one reporter at the Berlin Film Festival trying to get a word in edgewise, but she got heard. They called on her. And so find talented people who want to collaborate with you. This was a test we did for Zeiss. And you know some of these people. I've had great support from some of the local people on the documentary. They've come out and they've helped me shoot. And Steve's been there several times. You know this guy. This is the look that this hasn't been graded yet, but this is the look we're going for the interviews. Very clean, very light, very airy, joyful, and talented. These are my partners in Lumberjack who've been amazing to me over the years. Help others. This is a big one for us because everybody wants it for free, right? So my theory is help other people. Be willing to do that and do your nonprofit work, or if somebody doesn't have a budget, go ahead and do that. But if they have a budget for expensive equipment and they don't want to pay you, go swimming. Really. If they don't care enough about people to put people in as part of that budget, then I don't know that they're the kind of people you'd want to work with anyway. And so that's become sort of my theory now. If somebody doesn't have a budget and they're working really hard and they need some help, I'm the first one there. So whatever you do, don't stop. Just keep traveling that highway. Chianti has never stopped. This was him late at night. We were doing a shoot with him, and he did over and over and over again that take. This was when he had torn his hamstring. He was competing in swimming. So just keep moving, even when you think you can't. You know you can. You can climb that mountain in Kern Valley one step at a time, even though that rock is really loose. That rock is really loose, and you don't know if you're going to slip backwards, but if you just keep looking forward. At one point, I lost 200 terabytes of data to a hack because I was doing an investigative journalism piece, and I guess they just didn't like me doing that. So that's another story. But it took 2 years to recover that, and about $70,000 in addition, my own money in addition to what Drive Savers and OWC and some of the other companies had pitched in. 200 terabytes is a lot of data. And it was at a time when I was consolidating everything so that I could get a larger system in, and that's when they attacked. So I went to the Amazon, thought a lot about things, and at some point after this phishing outing, I went unconscious for 2 days. This is the first thing I saw when I woke up. What did I do? I grabbed my phone and I took a picture. We still don't know what happened. Nothing wrong with me. We've taken every test in the world. Nothing was wrong. I don't know if you've ever been through anything like that, but... Pardon me?
Marshmallows.
Yeah, it was the marshmallows. No, everybody else had them. But the point is, though, that I looked up and my client and his wife were there, and I said, how long have I been out? And they said, 2 days. And I said, oh, we got to go shoot. So I got up from here, and I mean, I was sweating like crazy, grabbed the camera, we did a night shoot. But I was still kind of delirious. I turned the light on my helmet on, you know, those lights, and I had every bug in the world flying around my face. So I learned my lesson there. But I think the bottom line for me is that it's all about life and how we live it. And it's just all about life. So don't put your life on hold. Live it. Live it well. Just do whatever you can to get your story. This was my home for 6 months, traveling around the country on a series. And find your inner warrior. This is my grandson. Be a hero for yourself and for others. My father is no longer with us. And Tim Samaras, a few months after I took these pictures, passed away when he was chasing storms. Keontae's lost a lot of friends. So you just never know. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Just live your life and love others and let them love you and have a great time. So my theory is a joyous life, well lived, that's your legacy. And that's what you're going to be remembered for. So I just wish for you guys that all your dreams come true and that you do live a wonderful life. And so now I'm doing what I love to do. On the side, I'm doing a lot of still photography, portraits, and documentary, and landscapes, and wildlife, anything I want to do, because I'm old enough now to where I can do that. And this is how you get a hold of me. Tom and Robin and the guys know how to reach me. I'm actually just joined the group, so you're stuck with me. So I just want to...